I would like to begin by thanking the Tuono Oram and Pascayaki nations for allowing us to remain on their land. So, when I was first asked to do this by Shannon, who works with me and is a friend of mine, I thought, oh God, what am I going to do? And, she said to me, I know you're a particularly disobedient person. Well, okay, that's clear when you meet me for 5 minutes. And she said, I don't really want to hear a story about you being disobedient. I want to know why you are the way you are, right? So that sort of puts you into this existential crisis. So I'm walking around being like, why am I the way I am? What am I going to do? I'm walking around all very confused, and I thought about it for a long time. And I'm a Unitarian Universalist, and we believe in living our lives by principles. And I've sort of adopted my own principles, and you are cool with that. We flow with whatever happens. And when I was about 12 years old, I heard somebody say the phrase, I always thought that somebody should do something. And then I realized I am somebody. And I took it to heart. It became a very big thing for me. So this leads to very strange situations, right? I'm 13. We're living in Maryland. We have a beach near our house. It's about, 3/4 of a mile. It's the beach off the river where everybody goes. They build bonfires. They drink a lot of beer. They leave a lot of beer bottles. So I'm like, I got this. And I take these big yard bags down to the beach. And I fill them up. And I haul them back up to my house. And I'm standing there at the kitchen sink and I'm rinsing them out. And there are beer bottles in the sink. And there are beer bottles on the counter. And on the kitchen table and on the floor. And my mother comes in and goes, what the fuck? And I said, if I don't save the world, Mom, nobody else will. And she's like, I give up. And she just walked out. So that became one of my guiding principles, and then I added another one. I know most of you have heard the starfish story, right? There's a guy who's walking on the beach. The tide is going out. There's starfish on the sand, and they're dying, and he's throwing them back in. And someone walks up to him, and he says, there's millions of starfish. What are you doing? He says, I'm going to save them. And he said, well, there's millions of them. It doesn't make a difference. And he said, it makes a difference to this one. And he throws one back in the water. So that became another thing that I thought about. That how do you make a difference? And if it makes a difference to one person, does it make a difference? So I went to work, which I had always dreamed about, for Child Protective Services as an investigator. And I had been in foster care myself as a child several times. And it was a dream of mine that this is what I was going to do. So I come across this one case, and these two teenage girls. I think they were 13 and 15 when I started their case. And I get this call that says there's these kids in trouble and that they are being abused. And so I go to their school and talk to them. And then I call their parents and say, I need to talk to you. And their stepmother decides that because they agreed to speak with me at their school, that there would be no more Christmas. And she took down the Christmas tree. She hit one of the girls in the head with it when she was taking the Christmas tree down, and then managed to slap her around a little while she was doing that. Then she took the children, and when they would come home from school, she would strip them to their underwear, and she would lock them in their rooms. She fed them, because she knew she had to feed them, and would let them out in the morning. She would let them out to go pee, and she would let them out in the morning to go to school and hand them clothes. And she gave them the raggediest clothes she could find because she said that she wanted everyone to know how horrible they were because they spoke to CPS. So the kids go to school, and they call my CPS cell phone from their guidance counselor's office. And they say, Kat, you have to help us. You have to help us. You have to get us out of here. I get called into my supervisor's office. My supervisor and I did not get along very well because I'm not a particularly obedient person. Also because I'm openly queer. That did not go over well in Texas. You can only imagine. So I get called into her office, and she says to me, we have babies who are being beaten and their arms are getting broken and they're being starved. These girls are teenagers. They can take care of themselves. Close the case. So when you close a CPS case, you actually have to say why the family does not need to receive services, right? Looking at her and I'm like, you're crazy. I'm not closing this case. At that point in time, the older girl was shoplifting. She was having indiscriminate sex, which pretty much anybody she could find. The younger one was cutting herself, and we couldn't get her to stop. And I looked at her and I was like, there is no way on this world I'm going to close this case and put my name, saying this family does not need services. And she said, I'm giving you a direct order. And I said, well, you're asking the wrong bitch about that. I was like, you might want to close that case yourself. So they fired me. She closed the case herself. By the way, later on, she was subsequently fired in a ethics violation, and they asked me to come back, and I told them absolutely not. So I was happy that she was removed from office. But the girls themselves, after she closed the case, I knew someone who knew their grandmother, the birth mother's mother. The birth mother did not have parental rights anymore, but grandma did. And I called grandma, and I said, you need to get them. I was like, I don't care what it takes, you need to get them. So she went to court, and she filed for custody of them, and I took the stand, and she got the kids. So even if you're a teenager, and you can take care of yourself, I don't know how many of you all have teenagers, but I have a teenager who decidedly cannot take care of herself. Yeah, she thinks so, but not too much. It's important to make a difference in somebody's life. So then I add another part of my story, and I heard the phrase, all people should be treated like human beings. And that became very important to me. And I moved to Arizona, and it became even more important to me, with the most disgusting human rights violations I think I've ever seen in my life. And so I moved here right when 1070 was being debated, and then 1070 was passed. And one of the things that Joe Arpaio decided was that to celebrate the passing of 1070, he was going to raid the barrios. I don't know if you guys all remember this. I remember it very clearly. So he said, the day that 1070 goes into effect, I'm going to raid the barrios, I'm picking up everyone. So we got approximately 100 people. We had thousands more who were supporting us, and we're very grateful. And we chained ourselves to the place where the trucks that would go to raid people would come out of the jail. We shut it down. We shut down his office at Wells Fargo. We shut down his jail. We shut down anything that we could think of that would possibly allow the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office to celebrate something so horrid by raiding the barrios. So they take us to jail, which we pretty much expected, except, about half of us were white people, which made them very confused. They weren't really quite sure what to do with us. They were like, whoa, what do we do? There's white people, what do we do? It was really it was funny to watch their faces. They were very, very confused about what to do about us. And most of the white people were ministers. So they found that very confusing as well, because they were in their stoles and everything. And we were like, oh, white ministers, freaking out. But then there were the people who knew exactly what to do with us, and they knew exactly why they were there. So there was this one girl named Raina, and she was 19 and stupid, and went to visit her mom in the jail. She was not there with us. She had gone to the jail, and she did not take her marijuana pipe out of her purse when she walked into the jail. So she was taken into the jail, so she became one of our prisoners with us. We're friendly people, we hang out, we chat. So we get her story, and she goes to her bond hearing, and they set a bond for her, and they're bringing her back. And she knows that they've cut the phone lines to where we are, because they cut the phone lines to all the cells that we were in. They were like, the Unitarians can't talk to anybody, they talk too much. It's weird. See, people who are laughing are Unitarians. So they cut the phone lines, and they're trying to put her back in the cell, and she says, no, I need a place where I can make a phone call. I need to call an attorney, I need to call a bail bondsman, I need to get out of here, I can't stay here. And the woman who was taking her took her by her hair, and she smashed her face against the glass, and we're standing on the other side screaming. She smashes her face against the concrete wall, She smashes her face against the floor, and she kicks her in the head, and she kicks her again, and she kicks her again, and there's blood everywhere. And she looks at us, and she says, "What are you white people going to do about it now?" And we're crying, and we're screaming. Which leads me to my last thing that I brought into myself. About a couple months ago, there was a conference about how to continue the struggle in Arizona against civil rights violations. And Miguel de la Torres was there, and he was talking. And he used the phrase that we need to embrace despair. That if we move with the idea that we're going to affect change, we'll give up. But that if you embrace despair, there's nothing else to do but move forward. There is nothing else to do but do what's right. If you give up the idea that you're going to affect any change and just do what's right because it's your family and it's your community and it's the right thing to do, then that's the way that we roll. So when you know that they're going to shut down Mexican American studies anyway, you embrace despair. When you know that they're going to raid the barrios the next day, you shut it down. So I always thought that somebody should do something. Then I realized I am somebody. It matters to this one. All people are human beings, and everyone needs to embrace their own feelings of despair. Thank you.